And hi, everybody. Nice to see you again. I'm back. We're all back. Well, not all of us, some of us. We brought different friends today. That's what we do on a daily basis. But welcome, friends. Great to see everybody. Great to be seen as we hurtle towards the end of the week. My name is Dean. We've got a full show for you today. As always, you can get everything we do on a daily basis at deanblundell.com. And you can go and hit subscribe on our YouTube channel, Dean Blundell Show, or Twitch, Dean Blundell TV. And, of course, wherever you get your fine podcasts, Google, Apple, Spotify, etc. Thanks to our friends at Easy Auto Financial for making this possible. If you're looking for a new vehicle and free financing and you don't want to do any of the work because it's a pain in the ass filling out forms, I got your people. EasyAutoFinancial.ca. Check them out today. No obligation. These guys are ninjas. Doesn't matter about your credit rating. Just call them. Trust me. They'll help you out. Also, our friends at Easy Auto Financial are friends with our guys over at Ed's Fine Imports, too. He sells Gitch, luxury branded underwear, boxer briefs. Right now, promo code GITCH3 gets you a free pair. Go to edfineimports.com. Gentlemen, they've got the pouch in the front, made for Canadians, by Canadians, so you know that they'll fit. Go to edsfineimports.com today. And, of course, our friends at Kivlaw Defense Lawyers, if you're looking for a tremendous defense attorney, if you're looking for someone to get you out of trouble or navigate some legal shit that you're going through, there's no one better. My friends in Southern Ontario, Kivlaw.ca, will help you no matter what. Robert at Kivlaw.ca for more details. Well, guess who's back? Linz. Linz is back. Really nice to see Ryan Lindley, the host of the Linz Report. Nice to see you at Ryan Lindley on Twitter. Normally when we get a show together, we're like, let's talk about this, let's talk about that, let's talk about this, and let's try and all bring it together and in like a little organic train of information, entertainment, infotainment, if you will. Today's no different, but most of the infotainment that's coming out of this country right now is in Western Canada. Now, when other people sit there and they go, what do you mean it's coming out of Western Canada? Are you going to beat up on Western Canada? Are you going to go after them for the lack of knowledge and information some of them seem to employ when it comes to the convoy and when it comes to vaccines and when it comes to masking and when it comes to personal responsibility? The answer is yes. That's exactly what we're going to do. Yeah,
absolutely.
Exactly. But it just seems like all the heat is coming out of Alberta. And if I've lived in Alberta, I'm an Alberta guy. I used to love it out there. It truly is God's country. You're never going to find nicer people by and large. Everybody's willing to help you at the side of the road, give you their last of whatever. It's how they are. But we have some flies in the ointment, so to speak, when it comes to culture wars and perception. And, of course, now they have a premier who's literally a raving stark lunatic and an extremist. And so we wanted to talk about that and fit everything into one podcast, and no better person to do it with than my favorite columnist. He's the lead columnist for the National Observer, and he's terrific. It's a friend of mine, friend of yours. Please welcome back to the program out of Calgary, I believe. Is that where you are? Max Fawcett, ladies and gentlemen, National Observer.
Max
Fawcett.
Thank you.
Good to see you.
How long have you lived there for?
I've been here since literally the pandemic started. I moved here. Very good choice. And then I'm not even kidding because I met my beautiful wife during the pandemic. So thank goodness for Calgary. But I've lived here before, but born and raised in Vancouver, and then spent a bunch of time in Toronto. So I've kind of seen most of the country except for the Maritimes, which I am told are really, really nice. So
unbelievable. You haven't been out east yet? You haven't been to the East Coast?
Well, never been to Halifax, never been to anywhere out there. So that's on the list.
I'm the same as you. I've only been as east as Quebec. That's as east as I've gone. So.
Well, no, you have to. If you do one thing in this lifetime, you got to go see as much of this country as you can. East coast of Canada, the Atlantic provinces, it's like, and we're going to get into this, like the disparity between the narratives and how people are and what they think and the mentality of the individuals. But the very first time I was in PEI, I drove out there. It was like 10 years ago. Flew out there for a golf thing, rent a car. I'm barreling down the highway in PEI. I'm trying to get to the hotel because we got a golf thing to get to, and I'm like honking at it's 100 kilometers an hour. It's like everybody's doing 50. I'm like, what the fuck is wrong with this province? Everybody. And I pull up to a stop sign. Some guy pulls up next to me with a thick PEI accent. And he's like, where are you going, boy? And I'm like, golfing. Why are you so slow? He goes, we don't do that out here. We drive the speed limit or half the speed limit, and you have to drive behind us, he said. And by the way, he said, enjoy your trip here. Don't be in such a rush, you Toronto people. And then he just fucking putted away. And I'm like, oh, of course, I'm here now. But that's the mentality out there. It's beautiful. You got to go see it. And you'll never see like more stunning country. It's just fucking awesome out there.
What'd you call me?
What's that? No, stunning country. Yeah,
Oh.
it's very, very different.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah, it's totally different. Anyway.
Yeah, no, it's you know what? He did you a big favor with just trying to get you to cool it down a bit and turn the anxiety down. And yeah, we
I think
we
they
got to
do
learn
the
that.
opposite out west too. I think they're like, "Fuck, you're only doing 130, dude. Pick it up."
No, driving the speed limit on a highway here is basically a criminal offense.
Yeah, it is.
I was on. I was there back in September, and a bunch of places in Edmonton are 120 minimum speed. I'm like, or maximum speed. I'm like, wow.
Yep.
We need that more here, you know.
And
like
that's posted out there. That's
posted, yeah.
Because they're like, "Fuck, hurry it up! All right, everybody's got to get home." And out here, it's like just accepted that you have to do 120, even though it's posted 100. But everybody's in a rush out here too. Anyway, I don't want to talk about speed limits. I want to talk about P. I want to talk about Alberta, which is why Max is here. Before we get to Alberta, how you feeling about the Blue Jays? You and I were talking a little bit about it at the trade deadline. You seemed a little more optimistic. They fucking laughed their way out of the playoffs in 2 games. You okay? How you dealing with it? I know you're a fan.
Well, so I have a bit of conflicted loyalties because, like, having grown up in Vancouver, I was a Mariners fan too, and I love this Mariners team that they're building. So sad to see the Jays go. Kind of happy to see the Mariners go on, and then they got flushed out in the next round. So we'll see where we go next year. But it is time for the big spending ownership of the Toronto Blue Jays to do some big spending. They need to lock Vlad up. I think they should trade Bo. I'm not big on Bo, but they got to make some moves because Baltimore is starting to get really good really fast, and that means all 5 teams in the division are going to be good. So you got to bring your A game.
Well, and dude, unlike, I don't know how you felt about it, watching Bo Bichette down the stretch just light it up. I'm like, oh, this sucks because I wanted to trade him in the offseason for some pitching.
I mean, apparently he was going through some pretty serious family shit this year with his dad, and so I cut the guy a lot of slack. He's a great player, but we got a lot of shortstops coming up in the system. He doesn't really play a great shortstop. And I just think him and Vlad, there's some weird chemistry thing there where if you get one of them out of the way, the other one's going to thrive. So we'll see. Yeah. But it'll be an interesting offseason. They're going to make some trades.
You know what I like about the offseason is the trade deadline. When you and I were talking to each other, it's funny because like you never there's no tone on Twitter, as you know, even though I can tell your tone, especially when you shit on people by saying, "Oh, this is lovely." But there's no tone on Twitter. So the trade deadline, I was like all over him. Like, you failed at the trade deadline, and then you started tweeting me, and we started having this back and forth. And then we took it into the DMs because I'm like, I don't want the guy to get fucking mad at me on Twitter, and I don't want him to think that I'm shitting on his baseball knowledge. I'm like, let's just DM about it, right? But a lot of people don't know that. Other than a lead columnist, you're also a well-rounded baseball fan. Right?
Baseball Twitter is one of the great joys that is remaining on that otherwise horrible website. So I really enjoy baseball Twitter.
I do too. Hockey Twitter's not as fun these days, but we're not here to talk about that. What the fuck is going on in Alberta? I think it's the easiest way to ask. But what is happening in Alberta? Because it's either you're getting a bad rap, you deserve all the rap because of what happened at the convoy, and we'll get to that a little bit. It's like every major bit player, cosplayer, LARPer that is involved in keeping bad information into the ethosphere, like the Salets and the Fleurys and the Kevin J. Johnsons. It's like Alberta has become a magnet for Loserville. But it's the other part of this that I find interesting is like you have a premier who's one of them now. Right? Like, as someone that lives in Alberta, can you kind of assess what's happening in your province?
Yeah, I mean, it's funny. I get that question from my friends and relatives in Ontario and BC all the time. They're just sort of like, what the fuck? Like, she's retweeting Holocaust denying blogs, or she's doing anti-Semitic blogs, or she's doing, there's a new blog every day that apparently she's linked to that she has to apologize for. In fairness, I don't think she's linked to a Holocaust denying one, but anti-Semitic, yes, and a bunch of other things. I mean, look, it's funny that I did a panel with Danielle the day before she announced she was running for the leadership of the party. We were talking about sort of energy and federalism in Canada, and like she's a provocative pundit. Her role for the last few years has been to kind of float ideas that are on the fringe and get people fired up, and so she's been engaged in almost every COVID-19 conspiracy theory you care to list. She's skeptical of the things that the bad people on the internet are skeptical of, and that plays in the United Conservative Party. You know, it's this thing where Jason Kenney, who is, I think, in many respects, a reasonable human being. You know, he believes in the rule of law. He understands constitutional history. He's craven and wants power, but he also understands how the world works. He has created a party over the last few years where this sort of stuff is okay. You know, he's sort of nodded and winked to these far right elements, you know, who think Trudeau is responsible for every bad thing that's ever happened in their life, who think the federal government is stealing from them, who think that, you know, Confederation is broken. And she just took it that next logical step, right? She took his 80% of the argument and took it to 110%, and the membership ate it up. And, you know, you saw all the other leadership candidates trying to keep pace with her sort of ludicrous ideas, and they just couldn't do it because it wasn't them. But it is her. And so that, you know, she is now the Premier of Alberta. She was elected by, I think, roughly 2% of the population. So technically, legally, she has a mandate. You know, I've seen some people suggest that she's an, you know, illegitimate premier. She's not. She's legitimate. That's how our system works. But does she represent the majority of Alberta? I don't think so. And, you know, you've seen polls recently. There was a poll from Navigator that came out the other day that had the NDP up 53 to 38, and that was before any of these comments came to light. So I think this could get very bad very fast for her. I think definitely there's a lot of members of her caucus, or maybe some members, who are looking over at the UK and going, "Hey, can we do that to her? Can we, you know, make her resign?" Because especially if you're, you know, one of the cabinet ministers from Kenney's government who has a riding in North Calgary, she's basically said she doesn't care if you lose. She said, "I don't need Calgary to win the next election. All I need is rural Alberta and a few seats from the rest of the province." So she's basically writing off senior members of her government. You might see some fireworks in the weeks and months to come if she makes it to the election. You know, who knows?
Well, and that's the question I would ask is, you know, before we get to the ridiculousness of the first, like, not even week and a half where, you know, she's had to apologize or clarify for some pretty fucking huge stuff, like stuff that would normally sink a politician in other areas of the country within minutes, right? And we'll get to that ridiculousness in just a second. But to that point, when it comes to, you know, Danielle Smith, in terms of how she got here, how did she get here? Like, how is it possible someone who thinks that the Ukraine should roll over for Russia, thinks that vaccines are a joke? You know, we've got a laundry list. Ryan will get to her greatest hits here in a second. How is it possible that someone like that, you know, in political terms, is created? Like, I know how those people are created in our lives and every day, you know, back and forth to the store. You see a guy with a "fuck Trudeau" flag. I'm like, well, I get how he got there. But how does someone like Danielle Smith get there? Because she's a fairly, from what I understand, supposed to be anyway. I read a great Substack article from Jen Gerson today, and it was about how she doesn't have the gift of discernment, but other than that, she's a pretty smart person. But I would suggest to you that smart people don't believe half the shit this person believes. So, like, where did she come from? Was she in the clergy? Was she some kind of weirdo politician who just found a movement and latched onto it, kind of like Romana Dadula, but on a bigger scale? Like, how did we get Danielle Smith? How did you get Danielle Smith?
So Danielle Smith is sort of very much cut from the same cloth as a lot of right-wing politicians in Alberta, right-wing commentary, pundits. You know, she had a column in you know, right-wing newspapers. You know, there's that famous column from the early 2000s where she says moderate smoking is good for your health. You know, sort of like a contrarian. And, you know, contrarianism has a rich tradition on the prairies, and certainly conservative contrarianism. So, you know, she was there. She was in this sort of advocacy space. Then she went into politics. I mean, she was the leader of the Wild Rose. Everyone thought she was going to win the election in 2012. And then one of her candidates said something, you know, that basically that gay people were going to burn for eternity in a lake of fire. And she didn't step in and boot the candidate out of the party. So she lost
that old chestnut.
That old chestnut. Yeah. So she, you know, she lost that election. Then she crossed the floor with 8 of her fellow MLAs to join Jim Prentice's government, which subsequently got beaten by the NDP. And then she sort of went off into the wilderness to work she went off to work in radio, sort of the same career trajectory as Christy Clark in BC, where, you know, you lose an election, you rehabilitate yourself on talk radio, you build your audience, you build your profile, and then you re-enter public life. And she's honestly followed the Christy Clark playbook to a T. The only difference is that Christy Clark never said any of this stuff. You know, she was curious, interested, maybe a little conservative, but she wasn't on her show saying that, you know, SARS was a conspiracy or that, you know, I'm trying to think of a parallel from that time, but you know, she wasn't that kind of person. So that's the part where it's really jumped the shark. And they have years of her shows, years of her newsletter to go through to pull out opposition research. I mean, so far, all the stuff that's been unearthed has mostly been unearthed by journalists, right? It's, you know, Justin Ling on his Substack, where he did a lot of the deep dive on her kind of her information diet, because misinformation is his beat, and he's pulled out a lot of this stuff. But I guarantee you, there's ads ready to go from the NDP on any number of things. And you know, as to I've asked this question on Twitter, you know, how did her opponents in the leadership race not bring this stuff out? Are they, number one, are they incompetent and they couldn't find it? Or number two, do they agree with it? And someone proposed a number three to me, which is that the membership would have liked her even more if this had come out, right? That's the membership they have now. It is a sort of QAnon adjacent sort of political movement that defines itself almost entirely by hating Justin Trudeau and hating people who give a shit about COVID. And I don't think that can win a general election, but I guess we'll have to wait and see.
Yeah. Well, let me bring this up. This is from the Tyee. I read this just before we got on. It's a great little article on how people reacted to the convoy, right? I mean, this is what kind of swept her to power. She harnessed the power of idiocy effectively. In a paper in University of Alberta, political science professor Jared Wesley, Alberta Separatism and the Freedom Convoy, a brand new Western alienation, says that a public opinion research done in April 22 indicated 18% of Albertans said they felt positive emotions about the convoy protest compared to 40% who felt anger, anxiety, frustration, negative emotions. More than 2,000 Albertans found that 48% of Albertans strongly opposed the protest and how it was done, and another 15% were somewhat opposed. So 63% of the opposition overall. Quote, sizable majorities of Albertans felt the Freedom Convoy took a protest too far. Paper always says, and the 40%, 7% of Albertans answered that Trudeau government did the right thing by invoking the Emergencies Act. Those numbers are pretty standard across the province. So, you know, you're getting a bad rap, but why the silence from that side? Like, what is it that is preventing, you know, the vast majority of Albertans from going, whoa, we're not fucking around here. Like, we're getting a bad name on the national stage. But the receipts are there, Max. Like, you know, if it's not her, it's Jamie Salé or Theo Fleury or any number of Tamara Leish. I mean, any number of people that have come out there that have really Pat King. Yeah, exactly. That are really the voices that this person, Danielle Smith, identifies with, right?
Absolutely. I mean, you know, she will, I'm sure, try to put some distance between her and maybe some of the more odious ones. But during her leadership campaign, she did an event with Theo Fleury, right? This is not Theo Fleury from 2014. This is 2022 Theo Fleury. This is conspiracy theory Theo. And she did an event with him, and a journalist asked her, you know, why was she giving him space and credibility? And she kind of just, you know, spun it away and said, oh, I'm, you know, interested in hearing from all people. And he's a very important voice in the, you know, the fight against abuse and violence against, you know, against minors. And sure, he was before he squandered his credibility. But she is drawn to this energy. You know, there's a great quote that Jason Markusoff from CBC got out of her, I think in a previous story. This is from a while ago, but she basically said that, you know, her staffers had told her that she doesn't have a crazy radar. Right. She can't see someone coming at her with crazy energy and flag it correctly. She welcomes it in, she to it, and she reproduces it. Right. It's frustrating as, you know, as a moderate Albertan. I'm sure some people think I'm a unhinged, and other people in Vancouver think I'm a right-wing oil and gas shill. So, you know, I think that splits the middle. But
dude, you got checks coming in from both sides, right? You got the big pharma, big government checks, and you got the big oil checks. Don't say a fucking word, Max.
You got to get both. You got to get multiple income streams. That's how you do it.
I know.
Right. Why pigeonhole yourself?
Yeah. It's frustrating to watch our reputation just get sent to the cleaners. You know, like it's embarrassing that this is who people in the rest of the country associate with our province, when there are literally millions of people here who just want to do their jobs, just want to raise their families, just want to enjoy the great outdoors, and don't go in for any of this shit. And I think we will probably see that in the next election. That if she continues down this road, Albertans are not going to go for it. The polls are starting to show that. But, it's always been a really effective card to play here to hate the federal government and to hate governments led by Trudeau's. Like, it's the get out of jail free card for conservative politicians. They could be the worst at their jobs. They could be falling over themselves. Their pants are around their ankles. But as long as they say that they hate Trudeau, people like them. And it does get exhausting because, the facts really aren't there. But, trying, as I think we've learned over the last few years, certainly with Trump, trying to push back against lies with facts is kind of like trying to fight a knife with butter. It doesn't really work.
No,
it's a post truth reality. That's what we live in now.
Absolutely.
And you try to fight it, but what is the tool? It used to be truth. Now that's kind of ineffective, right? So.
Yeah, and when people get caught traditionally, and I remember Obama saying this a couple of years ago, he's like, "Yeah, when I was in the game, when I was the president, he's like, can we tell a lie and they catch you and you go, you got us," like, you know what I mean? That doesn't happen here. It's not and she's on a fucking incredible apology tour too. Let's get to some of that weirdness and talk about the clarifications and the apologies she's had to dole out almost daily, because some of them are significant. Let's go back to this old chestnut. Do you remember when she was like, "Cancer's your fault"? Remember that?
Absolutely. Once you've arrived and you've got stage 4 cancer and there's radiation and surgery and chemotherapy, that's an incredibly expensive intervention, not just for the system, but also expensive in the toll it takes on the body. But when you think about everything that built up before you got to stage 4 and that diagnosis, that's completely within your control. And there's something that you can do about that that is different.
Spoken like a true radio failure.
Yeah.
Can I just point out that I love the irony of someone who wrote a column saying that mild cigarette smoking is good for your health, now saying that you can control what goes into your cancer diagnosis. Like,
thanks, Danielle.
Yeah, really, really great.
Appreciate it.
That was a conversation with I believe a naturopath.
Dr. Perkins, I believe it was.
I mean, she's already said she's going to fire the next chief medical officer of health. I would not be surprised if she put a naturopath in there or some, alternative healthcare provider.
There was a follow-up to that interview. That was on July 21st. And then on the 25th, on another Twitter video, like that 21st clip at the top is what you just watched. But she clarified on the 25th, saying, "For over an hour, I listened to Dr. Perkins on her medical opinion, and she's quite correct. The first 3 stages of cancer are more controllable in terms of what complete care is available to a patient. But once you get stage 4, that's where the patient's less in control, and only traditional medicine, chemotherapy, and radiation and surgery and other difficult therapies are available as a course of treatment. Naturopaths and Western medicine are in agreement on this, and of course, everyone knows it to be true, except apparently for the NDP."
How the fuck do you, Max, how do you wake up after, you live in Alberta? How do you wake up after just reliving that? I mean, this is a few months old, and then reading that, and you know that she's going to be your premier again today. How do you go with confidence? Yeah, she stands a chance, because she does, right? That's the promise of this whole thing, which I find incredible. There might be content for another 4.5 years, but like, how do you wake up and look at that as someone who's deeply embedded into the process of the political system, and the quality of individual, the intelligence of individual that make great politicians or good leaders? How do you wake up and go, "Holy fuck, this is not going to be the best day of my life covering this person again"? Because it's just content at this point. That's just pure fucking insanity to me.
I mean, it's the gift that keeps on giving if you're a columnist or anyone who's covering this. I mean, I'm honestly, like, I was saying to someone, she's been already great for my career, because people in Ottawa are now calling me to basically explain what the fuck is going on in Alberta, and it is, if for at least as long as she's in office, that is going to be a steady stream of work for me. So
she's a click farm.
I mean, she's a human click farm. Exactly. I would prefer that we actually have a government that's run by competent individuals. I'll take the drop off in work, but like that. This is Alberta. You take the good with the bad. I remember when I moved here, people warned me. They were like, you got to remember, you're from BC, where politics are crazy. Politics out here are so boring, you're going to go to sleep. And in the last 10 years, it's been the craziest place in Canada. So, it is what it is, and you kind of got to roll with it.
Yeah.
Make
Speaking
politics
of it
boring
is what
again.
it is, let's roll with it into the next one. This was from like a week ago, where someone unearthed a podcast she did where she was asking questions about, foreign policy, foreign interference, and of course her educated opinion on the Russian invasion of Ukraine. I'm going to play this for you. She has since apologized. We'll get to the apology and we'll go through it together. Just the confidence in which she's mulling this over gets me. It's fucking awesome. Watch this.
What are your thoughts about the peace plan for Ukraine, Russia? No one seems to be pushing. Is this the older one where Ukraine said that they would be neutral and also denuclearize? Because that should have been the answer right from the beginning. If I'm missing something and there's some new plan, let me know. It would be absurd, if you want to try to draw a parallel, it would be absurd for Canada to have nuclear weapons and be allied with Russia and not think that was going to upset America. So why would we be surprised if Russia is upset because Ukraine has nuclear weapons and is allied with the United States? So I think the only answer for Ukraine is neutrality. And there's been thriving nations who have managed with neutrality, Switzerland being the most obvious example. So if there's something more you want to add to that, if you think I'm missing something, let me know, because I thought that was the solution from the beginning.
A couple of things there, Denny.
Where do you start?
Right?
That's why you're here. Start. I don't care where you start. Just give her.
Well, okay. First of all, is she saying allied or allied?
And so
allied.
Allied. Yeah, it's
allied,
a new way
but
of
I
saying
think she means allied. I mean, who knows, Max? Just keep going.
No, that's like the least of our problems here. So first, we'll start with the whole nuclear weapons thing. Ukraine doesn't have nuclear weapons. That they were taken out of Ukraine after the Cold War. So no, it would be ridiculous if in this fantasy world of hers that the Russian allied Canada, I don't know why it would be allied with Russia, had nuclear weapons all of a sudden. But that's a ridiculous hypothetical, easy to set aside. And then the idea that, there's been independent nations, neutral nations that have thrived before, like Switzerland. Switzerland is surrounded by mountains. No one can get in there. There's a reason why the Nazis didn't roll over it. It's because they decided it wasn't trouble. It wasn't worth the trouble to go in there. Like Switzerland is unique in the world in being able to be neutral. And Ukraine is sitting right on the doorstep with one of the biggest military nations on earth. Like it's so preposterous. And what makes it even dumber is that Alberta has the biggest Ukrainian diaspora population in Canada. Alberta is filled with people who trace their roots, including Danielle Smith, who traced their roots.
10% of Alberta has Ukrainian roots.
Exactly. And so to say that they should be neutral and, that there are parts of Ukraine that probably don't belong to Ukraine anyways because the borders weren't drawn correctly. Like, are you trying to lose the election here? Like, it just doesn't make any sense. I know obviously this was before she entered office, but the fact that she didn't immediately apologize on this, that she, got mad at the media and the NDP for politicizing it. Like, just say, look, I made a stupid comment. I shouldn't have said it. I'm going to go meet with some leaders from the Ukrainian community, and I promise to learn and be better next time. That's how you put this to bed. But I think she understands that this is going to be like an endless string of clips that people are going to be bringing up, the things that she said.
Yeah, dude, and it's never ending. Like, I mean, she had a blog for a long period of time. And that blog is, I didn't even bother because we have so much stuff here. Like Lynn's has a couple more of her greatest hits, which we'll get to. But like, I found that to be such an archaic and poorly educated explanation. And even to the point where the person who wants to be the Premier of Alberta is answering questions according to the ones that she's getting in real time. And while she's answering the questions, she's also asking for advice to fill her in case she's wrong. Like, and she's clearly 100% wrong, but she's like, let me know if I've missed anything. Well, you fucking missed the whole thing. It's almost like someone told her something when she was 12, because that's an arcane look at the explanation. And one I used to get from people in the church when I used to have to go to church as a kid. Like, it's just it's so fucking poorly thought out, and no matter of fact went into it, to the point where you say she's talking about hypotheticals. That was like a hypothetical that was based in the in several ideas that not only never happened, but there's no hope of them happening, right? Like that's what I found so amazing to me. It was like, this was a stretch, but it's not just a stretch. She was completely uneducated, showing her Dunning-Kruger, but at the same time, she was trying to be vulnerable and go, let me know if I got this wrong. Like, I mean, that you want that to be and she won. Like she won the leadership. And this was like well before the leadership vote.
And this didn't come out because for some reason her, 7 or 6 or however many opponents it was, either didn't have the wherewithal to find this, which I find kind of hard to believe, or they judged on some level that this wouldn't hurt her. And I think that is the sort of the most damning indictment of this party and where Alberta's government is at, is that people with good political judgment, not her, but her other opponents, looked at this and said, this won't hurt her. This might even help her, right?
Yeah.
Whereas in a rational party, this would sink her. And I've probably said more mean things about Jason Kenney than almost anyone in the country. He would never say stuff like this. He was informed about the world. He was intelligent. I might disagree with his perspectives, but he wouldn't come up with this sort of cockamamie, what if Canada was allied with Russia nonsense. It's just, as bad as we thought it was under him, it's like 100 times worse now. It's almost unfathomable. And I say almost because I've spent time trying to fathom it, because I think it will get worse.
I hope so, because it's like a new day every day. I hear something that comes out of Alberta. She's got some other beauties too, Ryan, go ahead, Max. Go ahead, please.
Well, just quickly, where it's going to get worse is, and I'm not hoping for this. So I had a column out today about, the fact that we're kind of hooped on COVID if it gets worse again. I hope we get lucky. I hope we get lucky. I hope it's, the combo of the flu season and the latest COVID variant. We do okay. I really do. But if we don't, Alberta's going to take it in the teeth, because we have a premier now who actively courts and empowers anti-vaxxers, anti-maskers, freedom people, who has said she's going to fire the board of the Alberta Health Services. So the organization that runs our healthcare system, she's going to throw it into total chaos, right as we're potentially dealing with a wave of infection and hospitalizations that our doctors and nurses, they don't have the stamina to deal with. They're already run off their feet. They're exhausted. They're, don't have the person power to keep up with it. And she's going to layer on top of that, I'm going to fire the board of the organization that runs these hospitals. Let's see how that goes.
That's unbelievable to me, is that she has that same anti-vax mentality, the same conspiratorial mentality, the convoy mentality, if you will. And she's taking that into policy and law. She's taking that into changing the fortunes of people, of which I believe, and I read this morning, 81% of this country is fully vaccinated. I think 50 have more than one shot, or 2 shots and a booster. Alberta is the same, statistically the exact same across the country. Like, that has got to be the kiss of political death for someone like that. But I can't discount the mentality of Albertans while we're talking about this, which takes me back to my original comment when we were talking about the disparity between the mentality of people here in Ontario, or here in the Greater Toronto area, and of course in Alberta. You've lived in both places. Do you see, what are the biggest differences in mentality? What are the biggest differences in the type of people and how people operate? Because it's hard for me to explain. I haven't been to Alberta in a long time, but having been there, lived there for most of my life up until I was about 21, 22, I can tell you that the difference between the mentality of people here and people there is vastly different. Vastly different.
I think in Toronto, part of it is that you can't not have a sense of community because you are surrounded by so many people all the time. Like, the idea that you are some sort of independent hero who's forging your own destiny and you don't need other people, like, it's childishness. Like, you look around and you realize, oh no, we're all in this together. And certainly there are people like that in Toronto, but I think the city and the sort of the urbanization of everything kind of disabuses you of that delusion on a pretty regular basis. It's a little easier in Alberta to kind of believe that you are your own, the protagonist of your own story, and it is your liberty and your rights and your freedom that is most important, and everyone else can kind of go fuck themselves. And that sort of is buttressed by the fact that it's a frontier culture. This is a frontier political culture, very much sort of defined by being wronged by others and resisting that being wronged. Whereas in Toronto, no one wrongs you. Maybe your neighbors wrong you, or the guy on the 401 wrongs you, but the government can't really wrong you because you're the most powerful part of the country. They have to listen to you. There's a sense of sort of pervasive victimhood here in Alberta that really kind of runs through all of our politics and our identity. And it's weird because we're not victims. We have good jobs. We have one of the best economies in the country. We live in a beautiful place. Like, we're not victims. But when you listen to certainly conservative politicians and conservatives who are ascendant in the culture here, everything is about victimhood. Trudeau is taking us to the cleaners. Quebec is taking us to the cleaners. The government is lying to us about COVID. Our freedoms are being infringed upon. The charter's being suspended. Like, it's just all about them being victims. And that's just not a part of the political DNA certainly in Toronto or even Ontario, I don't think.
No.
She's definitely not against how would she say it? Allyship with allyship with Florida. Like, she proposed that they make a deal with the governor of Florida, Ron DeSantis, to make like a separate border at Coots where people could fly into red states and back to Alberta only, as long as that way they welcome us there. We have to have direct connection with it. It was Diagolon. It was fucking Diagolon is what it was. She was like promoting Diagolon. And so she's definitely
Recently?
Yeah, this was during the convoy, during the federal travel mandates.
Like an airport for Florida at the Coots border, so people could just zip right into Alberta. Is that a real fucking thing? She really said
that's a real thing. Yeah, that was. She wanted to talk to Governor DeSantis and see if they could come up with some sort of a plan to let people from Florida come to Alberta and have people from Alberta go to Florida.
But that's the thing. Okay, so go ahead, Max.
Most people would, if you said, you're trying to turn Alberta into the Florida of Canada, they'd take that as an insult. She takes it as a compliment.
Yeah.
Right? That's aspirational for her government, I think.
Yeah.
Well, but here, this is what I've noticed, right? Like, we've seen this play out in the United States of America. We've watched Texas against the United States of America. We've watched Florida versus the United States of America effectively for the past 2 years, right? It's been, how can we fight the federal government? How can we make the federal government look like they're on their heels? How can we use the federal government to kettle a whole bunch of other idiots to tell them that the federal government doesn't care you? We're the only people that do. And it's almost like a mini political civil war. And you're seeing that happen, and you're seeing each Western province lean on each other for that possibility, right? The Alberta sovereignty movement, which turned into the Saskatchewan white papers, which was one of the funniest fucking reads I've ever read in my entire life. Like, I mean, it is the most ridiculous notion that there are certain governments in this country that just want to leave the country, that want to identify as American, and they hate it here. Like, I've noticed that as a trend more than anything, right? It's about this idea that we're going to leverage our political partners in different parts of the country, and we're going to have these back channel conversations, and we're just going to present the perception or the idea that we're all leaving and fuck you guys. That'll never happen. Like, that's what is so unbelievable to me, is that we get back to the perception, the extreme perception war that we see on a daily basis. And it's like, how the fuck can anybody in that province with a brain not go, well, that's not allowed to happen and it'll never happen. But fuck, I guess if you're looking to influence people and extremists, that's the way to do it, right? Well, don't worry, we're going to have our own country. Fuck, that's the dumbest shit I've ever heard in my life.
Well, I mean, they've been sort of stirring these folks up for many years to their advantage, to get them to make donations to their party, to get volunteers. And I think they've lost control of it, right? Like, they have thought that they could have kept a lid on this and just kept it at a steady boil and keep it sort of at their right hand. And it's, Danielle Smith is sort of the proof that it's boiled over, that people are going to take these ideas to their illogical extremities. And you started to see people in the business community in Calgary start to speak up and go, whoa, this is way too far for us. The CEO of the Chamber of Commerce here has spoken out against the Alberta Sovereignty Act, against her ludicrous plan to relitigate the carbon tax. They already lost in court, but they're going to go back to court again for some reason. So I think the sort of smarter, pointier heads in the business community understand that this stuff is very damaging. They can look at what happened in Quebec in the 70s and 80s and be like, we really don't want to go down that road where all of our, big companies and head offices that can leave will leave. But I think these folks are kind of a little too full of their own wind to slow down anytime soon. Like, I've had conversations. I've tried to sort of have conversations with people who believe that Alberta can separate. And I sort of say, what do you do with the oil and gas? And they go, oh, we'll just take it to the coast. And it's like, you understand that BC is not going to let you do that. BC is opposed to oil and gas development by and large, and they don't want any of this stuff crossing their territory. They go, oh, there's something in the UN that would let us do that. And I was like, so, and there isn't. But so you're steadfastly opposed to the UN all the time, except when they will let you apparently ship your oil across BC to Tidewater. Like, it is a child's version of reality, and that's even being mean to children. It's just
I've met
so
some pretty smart kids.
Yeah, it's just. I mean, I think a child could sniff out the BS pretty fast. They'd be like, "Well, that doesn't make any sense. What are you talking about?" But these folks are really into their own supply here, and honestly, I would appreciate it if the federal government would stop being so cowardly about it. A lot of this stuff is a result of the vacuum that the federal government has created. They created it in Quebec, and Francois Legault has happily filled it by doing all sorts of unconstitutional or sort of quasi unconstitutional stuff. He's gone after refugees, he's gone after immigration. Like nature abhors a vacuum. People who speak English, and it's the same thing in the prairies. They're like, hey, wait a minute, if those guys can do it and not get pushed back, we're also going to pretend that we're independent nations. So like Saskatchewan, like you said, has claimed that it is a nation within Canada, just like Quebec. I mean, it's not. There's nothing that distinguishes rural Saskatchewan from rural Alberta, but these folks are using the arguments that the federal government has basically allowed them to pick up. And I wish that the Prime Minister would channel his father a little more and really kind of bring the thunder on some of this stuff.
Yeah.
I tell them, shut the fuck up. It'll never happen. You can't do it.
And that's what it is. The metaphor is it's like when you were a kid, you would claim your room as your sovereign little spot, put a sign up, no moms and dads allowed. But guess who was paying for the fucking lights and the water and the heat?
Mom and dad.
You know what I mean? And if you fucked up, mom and dad still put their foot down. The problem is mom and dad here aren't putting their foot down, and they're letting this continue, and they're letting the kids run the house. And it's,
I wonder if it's part of its strategy, though, because like it's sort of how in the United States, Democrats actually paid for advertising in the amplification of candidates who believed in the big lie, right? It's like, hey, let's just keep these crazies in office because there's no way they can sustain this lie. Is it kind of the same thing? Is that why they're not doing anything? Because I would agree with you. I mean, we've seen a vacuum of non-consequence in this country turn into a pretty serious issue. Case in point, the EA hearings that we're watching today, right?
Yeah.
I mean, my understanding from talking to people who are obviously closer to him than I am is that the Prime Minister actually genuinely cares about Alberta. He feels like his dad kind of didn't do things the way he probably should have. He was proactively divisive in the service of winning votes in Quebec and Ontario. Certainly with the National Energy Program. And I think he really is bending over backwards not to sort of recreate that fight. I think the problem is that his opponents are recreating it for him. Like he can be as nice and as accommodating as he wants, and they're never going to give him an inch of credit. They're never going to stand down because they know that this is the surest path for them to holding on to their power. It's the best card they have in their deck. And I think the only way he takes that card out of their deck is by counterpunching a little bit. He doesn't have to be a prick about it. He doesn't have to come out here and be like his dad, who was, a glorious prick. But just try to use his celebrity and his obvious political talents to get people to see that it is not the way some people are saying it is. Right?
Do we not value how much the West hates Trudeau out here?
No. Whatever you think it is, multiply it by 3.
That's what I figured.
It is true.
Like it's almost it's hard to believe, right?
It's visceral. It's not connected. It's not connected to facts or arguments or reality.
But is that the fire hose of disinformation that gets fed into that province? Because the only way that people have these belief systems or think that things are the way they are, which is what we're talking about, is if you've got that fire hose of information. And I'm not in Alberta to watch the 6 o'clock news. I don't read the locals. I don't fuck the Western Standard. Is just and True North. I mean. Whatever. I mean, it's just run by cretinous assholes who are agents on behalf of conservatives. So fuck that. It's like, but
sweaty ones too.
Do you get kettled by disinformation, weird stuff that we don't get here? Like, do you have repeaters of and relationships in that province that don't get out and play and act like news here? Because that's kind of how I look at it, is that, that fire hose of disinformation about how much you're supposed to hate this man and how much you're supposed to hate Ontario, how much you're supposed to hate Quebec. I mean, I'm clueless to it, but we run into the Eastern hatred bit all the time.
Yeah, I mean, I think a lot of it is the media market out here. CBC is much more widely watched and listened to in Ontario than it is in Alberta. It's just, it's a cultural fact out here. And then we don't, as much as Torstar can be shitty, they have all those local community papers, in Mississauga and Scarborough and Markham, you name it. They all have their own sort of local media to an extent, and it's not Rebel, it's not True North, it's not the Western Standard. There's definitely people in Ontario who read those publications, and maybe not the Western Standard, but the sort of penetration within the culture is not nearly as high as it is here. There's a saturation of this sort of misinformation ecosystem that is just way higher here, and our sort of quote unquote conventional news sources are less effective at creating a balance. And so, if people are consuming this diet, it really kind of creates its own momentum. It's, and diet is the right word, because, if you eat salt, sugar, fat, it makes your body want to eat more salt, sugar, fat. And it's the same thing with misinformation. Like, if you read an article that says that, here's 7 times that the prime minister has met with pedophiles and criminals, you're not going to suddenly want to go read like a business article in the Globe and Mail. You're going to want to go further down the crazy road. And that's sort of the situation that we're in.
Well, it affirms the bias, right? Then therefore they don't have to do any work. Therefore they feel great about themselves. Therefore they feed into their ecosystems and Facebook groups, and it's like on. I mean, it's just on. When do you think that the disinformation stuff in Alberta will change when you guys get cable?
I think when Rogers takes over Shaw finally out there.
Yeah. When you guys get electricity, do you think you'll be able to access the news?
Think maybe things like this will stop?
If you keep talking like that, we're going to cut off your oil and gas.
That's an Alberta plate on Alberta, that, man.
By the way, this is what we get. These are the visuals we get from beautiful Alberta. Guys, offering a cup of unvaxxed sperm, $2,500 a load, max. I mean, sounds expensive. That's a stud fee for like a racehorse, by the way. I just wanted to point that out.
And clearly no understanding of supply and demand, because there's far more supply of it out here than anywhere else. So, although maybe the demand is through the roof. Who knows?
I don't. I'm good. I mean, it's not. If I see an ad like that, I'm like, I'm all right. But listen, all the best to all the true bloods out there. Pure bloods.
Yep. Good luck with that.
Yeah.
But thanks for doing this, man. I always learn a lot when I talk to you and get some perspective on what's going on. And I think, it's funny. We've started to kind of reach into Saskatchewan with Tammy Robert. We've got a couple bloggers that have come out of Saskatchewan. You guys at National Observer do such a good job of being accountable and talking about the things that actually people need to see. But you also do a great job of deconstructing, intention behind some of this stuff and how these people work and what you need to be aware of. And I would highly encourage everybody to get a subscription to National Observer. Follow Max Fawcett on Twitter at Max Fawcett. And read his latest, which is incredible. I haven't had a chance to read it yet, but I'm really excited to get to it. The pandemic has been bad. The next one will be worse, and it's conservative supporters who will pay the heaviest price in both. It's a sweet troll job, it looks like right off the bat. And a sweet troll job. Way to go.
Well, that's part of the magic, right? Part of the magic.
Yeah, this is what people don't understand. Is like people like, how come you say these things or phrase these things that way where people are going to get upset? I'm like, have you been on the internet recently?
You read what we do?
Everybody to read it. Right?
Look, I would love to go back to the time when, you have a column in the newspaper and people would read it, and maybe they'd send you a letter with their postal address. But you need to grab the eyeballs in this day and age, and so sometimes you got to have a title that's a little bit provocative. But as I always say to people, just read the story if you can, and I bet you I'm at least 20% less offensive.
Yeah, big time.
Read past the headline.
Yeah, you are. You're way less offensive in your articles than you are on Twitter, but I don't find you offensive at all, at all. Before we go, Liz Truss, 44 days. She's out as the prime minister. Is this a look at what Canada and the rest of our provinces would be like if we just had conservative losers that didn't believe in science and life? Is that because, by the way, she didn't even last? Some dude at a newspaper was like, let's see what lasts longer, a head of lettuce sitting out in the open or Liz Truss. The head of lettuce won.
Yeah.
The prime minister of England basically called it quits today because she sucks, and she, like, within her first 44 days, drove that country into the financial toilet. Is that just a preview of what could happen if the wrong people get? Because this is like Danielle Smith light to me, if you ask me.
Yeah. I think the problem with that comparison is that, you know, in the British Conservative Party, you have reasonable people who understand that the world works in a certain way, and I'm not sure that the UCP has enough members to affect a similar sort of replacement of their leader. You know, I think she has that caucus locked down, for better or worse. And you know, if you're gonna expect her to be gone by the time a head of lettuce goes sour, you're gonna be, I think, disappointed. Maybe like a pumpkin or something would be a better choice. But
a gourd.
Yeah. Some sort of a gourd.
Yeah. But I think she's gonna make it till next May.
Well,
I don't think there'll be something to cause her to resign or some sort of major scandal, or are we to the point where that just doesn't matter anymore?
So can I be brutally honest? The only thing that would actually sink her is a picture of her and Justin Trudeau hugging.
Guess, eh? That would cause a non-confidence immediately.
Her saying nice things about Justin Trudeau and his government, she'd be out on her behind within a matter of moments.
Yeah.
Burning down the healthcare system because you believe that anti-vaxxers are the most discriminated people in your lifetime. I bet she could survive that.
She has. I mean, dude, she skated on that one. She skated on saying the Ukraine should just give everything they have to the Russians. Like, I mean, it's fucking unbelievable to watch. So I think you're right. The only thing that would keep her from remaining is a picture of her and Justin Trudeau hugging, or her saying, you know what? I think he's a pretty good guy. Whew. Kiss of death. Yep. Weird time. Max Fawcett, thanks for doing this. National Observer. We'll talk to you soon.
Okay, thanks, guys.
Anytime. Max Fawcett, he's lead columnist, National Observer, great guy. And dude knows his shit about Alberta.
Big time.
Right?
Yeah, I had some more things for him when he was talking about public health. She's got a track record of absolutely just not understanding anything about public health. This goes back to 2012, I think it was. Yeah, 2012, the XL beef issue. Mm-hmm. She was really sad that they were going to waste all that beef, and said, we all know thorough cooking kills E. coli. What a waste. Is there no way to cook it so it's safe to feed the hungry? So she wanted to feed tainted beef to homeless people just so it didn't go to waste. So public health has not been on her radar in 10 years. So that's why she's trying to get rid of.
That was when they shut down all the butcher factories, like all the meat processing plants, because they had tons of E. coli. I remember it was a big deal. And
took almost
can we not cook that?
Yeah, it took almost a year to get it back up and running. Like the confidence in Canadian beef fucking went through into the basement. Like, it was crazy. We'll just feed it to homeless people. Show everybody that if we feed it to the homeless people and they survive,
can we just cook it and feed it to losers. That's what she's
fine. You know what I mean?
It's stupid.
It's so good.
Fucking awesome to watch.
It didn't end there though. Like, she wanted to tell everybody that hydroxychloroquine cured 100% of coronavirus patients within 6 days of treatment.
Was this this is when everybody was like, I don't want the vaccine, I want hydrochloroquine?
Yeah, hydroxychloroquine.
And she tweets, and I quote, breaking, new controlled clinical study conducted by doctors in France. By the way, that was widely debunked. It's totally a joke. Absolute bullshit. Shows that hydrochloroquine cures 100% of coronavirus patients within 6 days of treatment.
Yet another one she had to apologize for and delete the original tweet. So the internet's forever though, right? So there's so many. Idiot. Oh, she's such a moron. And back to Ukraine. She was talking about the nuclear weapons.
Yeah.
It didn't end there. Her best buddy here, Tucker Carlson, she thinks that there's biolabs in Ukraine as well still.
Oh, this Russian talking point that got spread by Putin and the FSB, that they were there to get rid of biolabs that were going to create the future of diseases that was going to kill the world. Is that
Yeah,
she
that was
believed
part of
that too? Wow,
Yeah.
dude.
So,
Listen,
so they did polls.
If
They
she
did
believes
polls.
in a sky daddy, and if she believes that that her worldview is an acceptable worldview, and if she believes that Jesus Christ is the way, the truth, and the life, guaranteed she believes other weird shit too.
Oh, I guarantee it.
Guaranteed.
Yeah, she
Stands
probably
to
thinks
reason.
that Ogopogo was real, Bigfoot, like
He
all
is
this
real.
stuff.
I've seen it. I've seen Ogopogo. He is real.
Really, eh?
Yeah, I've seen it with my dad, my own eyes. No word of a lie.
Yeah.
17. Saw it. Anyway, keep going.
Was it when you were at church or
No. We were driving from my grandmother's house, Vernon, British Columbia, Cal Lake. We're driving down the ridge on the way into Vernon, British Columbia. Boom, we see this single moving through. Dude, you think I'm joking?
I do.
I'm telling you the truth. I wish I was
think you were
lying. I
high.
don't want to sound great. No, I was like 17. I hadn't touched drugs at that point.
Oh.
Or alcohol. I saw Ogopogo. Dude, you laugh about it, but and my dad keeps saying to me, like, quit telling people about Ogopogo. I'm like, why? Dude, we saw it. And he's like, yeah, but I don't want to talk about it. People think I'm crazy. I'm like, no, you're not crazy.
He's right.
He's
His
not
dad's
right.
a smart guy.
I'm 17. My sister's like 13. Who cares? She's in the passenger seat in the back. My mom and dad are in the driver's seat. Dad's driving. Mom's in the passenger seat. 17. So what is this, 1990? And there I am driving in the back seat. My dad stops the car. Now, keep in mind, my dad doesn't believe fucking anything ever. My dad is the guy that orders the same clubhouse sandwich at the same restaurant every single time he goes. And he has the same chair that he sits in. And he doesn't believe in anything that he can't see, feel, hear, or touch. Nothing. He stops the car and he's like, no, dude. He stops the car and he's like, look at that. Look at that. Look at it. And this is in the middle of a fucking highway. Yeah. And we look out the window to this thing that he's pointing at and he's shaking. And I see it. It's this fucking thing. I can't tell you how long it is. Several humps cruising through the water. And then all of a sudden, boom, it disappeared. And you saw the trail of the actual water kind of dissipate. I've never seen anything like that. Dude, and you can tell me I'm crazy. You can tell me I'm nuts. I saw it with my parents. And you know me. You know I'm not going to make up the fact that I
normally
saw
you're yeah, normally
Bigfoot, don't believe in him. I don't even believe in Ogopogo, but whatever the fuck that was huge. That's all I'm saying.
Okay. All right.
Maybe a big fish, maybe a large snake. Maybe it was a mechanized Ogopogo, and some guys were fucking around with everybody.
Some people were fucking with you, maybe. Yeah, you were getting trolled. Maybe, I don't know.
Anyway, Danielle Smith for sure believes it, especially if you say, "Oh, that's Jesus."
Yeah, Jesus.
That's underwater
Ogopogo
Jesus.
There.
Yeah, underwater Jesus. That's who that is.
So they did some. They wanted to know what you thought was the worst thing that she had said. They did a poll, and this was just a obviously unofficial poll, but they said tainted meat for homeless people was 12%. Smoking is healthy for you hit 10%. Hydroxychloroquine was 5%, and cancer is the patient's fault. One at 73%. So
yeah. Well, that's her.
Yeah,
that's the
stage 1 to 3 you can control. After stage 3, which was your fault, apparently, according to her. Yeah, there's no hope for you, and the government shouldn't pay for it now. She thinks.
No offense to naturopaths, you're not doctors.
Yeah, I will say full offense to naturopaths. Go fuck yourself and your essential oils and your yoni eggs and your
fucking crystals and your fucking this and your that and you're not doctors. You're just guys that wanted to be doctors that eat way too much granola and don't want to make any money, but you want to tell people you're a doctor. That's
ND
what you are.
Stands for not a doctor.
Not a doctor.
Natural doctor. Not a doctor.
They have ND. They have license.
They have ND.
That's what they're called. Oh, they even tried to alliterate the MD to ND just to confuse people.
Yeah, just to fuck you up.
Do they call themselves doctors?
Well, you figure you're on the phone. You wouldn't, you always have to say N. Did you say M? N, M. M?
Oh, I said Dean Blundell, MD.
Yeah, ND.
Dr. Dean Blundell, MD.
Yeah.
ND.
So,
I didn't know that.
She's all for that. She wants to get rid of people like Dina Hinshaw who just don't believe in that. That's why I was laughing when he brought up Francis Legault. As much of an asshole that guy is, when he came to public health, he didn't fuck around.
No.
So I think when it came to COVID, he did okay. It was absolute opposite in Alberta. The absolute opposite. So
How about
Tina
Jamie
Henshaw with her
Saleh,
bad
too?
haircut, whatever. She still did a great job, I think.
Do you know how many people like Jamie Saleh and Theo Fleury who like feel like they've been legitimized by the fact that one of their crazy ass friends who believes in ridiculousness and like another religious crazy fucked up extremist is in charge of their province after fucking gutting it out there for the past like 2 years?
Yeah.
It's gotta make them feel good. And
Yeah, that's
Jamie
her favorite.
has been on like a
God.
Twitter heater since fucking this woman became the premier of the province of Ontario, like you've never seen in your life.
Validation. Just validation, right? She feels validation.
She is so stupid too. It is unbelievable.
It's
We
pretty
have a
nuts.
fucking pandemic of idiocy. Like, look at this. Australia is now offering to pay for your funeral if the forced COVID jab kills you. That's not only not true, it's all bullshit. Jamie's like, that's very generous. Light work. And then she's like, to all the freedom fighting warriors, don't stop believing. Little Journey, Apple Music.
Lachlan's pissed at that one. We were talking in
loves
our
Journey.
DMs there. Lachlan loves that song.
Then she went after the trans group here by making fun of pronouns. Jamie Saleh, I identify as naturally immune. My pronouns are they and lied. Then she forwards this video of I don't know if you watched this video. This chick was so
Did.
stupid. It was unbelievable. Ottawa residents had to endure a lot of honking while Freedom Convoy 22 was happening. Maybe you should have talked to Trudeau the tyrant, the man who was destroying the lives of millions of Canadians. Jamie Saleh, who's never met Justin Trudeau, whose biggest fucking problem with him is the fact that a lot of people needed vaccines during the pandemic and he wanted people to wear masks, like as we all did, like the entire country. Yeah. Her biggest problem is that she thinks that Justin Trudeau is a tyrant. She's like, well said. Well, see, you never met the guy before, you stupid idiot. This is another
Great
one.
point.
Great point. You're a fucking moron. There's the point. Jamie Saleh, Trudeau threatens to return restrictions if vaccine uptakes don't increase. Yeah. That's because we're in a fucking pandemic still, you stupid idiot. This is a good one, too. Folks, if you want to see 3 of the dumbest individuals on stage, Fire and Ice, they're doing another show. Last chance, 4 tickets, which means these are not selling. Because all she's doing is saying, come see me and give me $50. Canadians for Truth.
That's this
they
weekend.
hide behind, yeah, it's bullshit. They hide behind this Canadians for Truth. All it is just a gathering of like-minded fucking evangelical zealots who have no idea how what it means to be a normal human being. And it's just this like, it's this convention of comfort and for idiots is what it is. So Arthur Pawlowski, the guy that she's there with, which is incredible when you think about Theo Fleury being on a stage with Arthur Pawlowski and Jamie Saleh, because Theo Fleury fights against the abuse of children. And I believe Arthur Pawlowski's wife, current wife, was quite young when they were married.
Like 13 or 14, wasn't she?
I'm not going to go down the road of exact ages, but quite young.
Yeah.
Like, unless you get the signature of a fucking hillbilly parent young, like that kind of young.
Can you bring this slip home to your mom?
And Jamie is all along the, protecting kids from pedophile, because it's the QAnon shit, right? These guys are super into QAnon because it's like, hey, as long as we can get some help from somewhere to be assholes, let's just get the help. So they're going to share a stage with a guy who may or may not have married his wife when she was effectively, according to the legal system, still a child.
Yeah.
And they don't care. You know why they don't care? After Theo's entire life story, which is fucking disgusting, how he was abused by his hockey coach. Yeah. And that Jamie Saleh has been fighting for children, fighting against the pedophile Pizzagate stuff. They're going to share a stage with a guy whose wife may or may not have been in the 9th grade when they got married.
Yeah. Some guy that married a kid.
There you go.
Good for you. Yeah. And it just doesn't matter as long as it furthers the narrative, right? And that guy is the loudest of the bunch, that Arthur Pawlowski guy.
Pawlowski.
Yeah. I don't know.
I would.
Word is he lives across the street from an elementary school. That kind of.
Well, that's just in case the wife passes.
And he can't get on the right stuff. Can't swipe right on the right stuff. There was a couple more, I think. I think this is something she retweeted. Yeah. Real pandemic is globalist tyranny, and it's only just begun.
Right.
Globalist.
She retweeted that?
Yeah. This is right up at the top there. Yeah. Jamie Saleh retweeted it. And if anybody doesn't realize, globalist is it's just an anti-Semitic trope.
Yeah.
They mean Jews. They just mean the Jews.
Yeah. That's what she's saying. She does it for whenever someone's like, I'm against globalism, what they're saying is, I hate Jewish people.
Yeah, I don't like
That's
Jewish
what they're
successful
saying.
people. Yeah.
Anyway, fascinating. Isn't Alberta's fascinating? It's full of all the most exciting people.
Can I show you the funny one that I found, though, in this entire thing when we were digging?
Yeah.
So this one was ironic. This is why. So this guy, fans of the Toronto Maple Leafs, said, "You're in a cult." He sent this to Jamie, but he didn't realize that he's also in a cult.
Of the Toronto Maple Leafs.
Exactly. So I applaud it and I giggle at the same time.
Yeah. It's so awesome.
Yeah.
Everybody's so mad that we live in this time. I'm stoked. Like,
for this perspective, it is. But you know
awesome.
what? Take yourself out just for a second, Dean. You know what? We say this all the time, right? But take yourself out just for a second. Put yourself in the shoes of a regular person that doesn't like create content and do stuff that we do with this. It would be a little frustrating and unnerving, I think. I understand that. I get that frustration, I think. Do you?
No,
I didn't think so. Because you believe in Ogopogo.
I do believe in Ogopogo because I saw it. You might think I'm joking, but I saw it with my own eyes. I saw it. See, that's the thing. I'm like my dad. I'm like, dude, you know me, right? You know me. If I can't believe in God because I can't see it or touch it, so I believe in me. I believe in Google more than I believe in religion because I can pump a question into Google, get an answer right away, off to the races. Pray, nothing. God, what is the square root of this? Nothing. Google, what's the square root of this? Boom, get the answer right away. It's super simple.
Weird.
God, I really wish I could find someone that would help me fix my car. Nothing. Google, where to get your car fixed. Boom, Active Green and Ross. Tuck it to Charlie. Everything worked out. It's been working out for years. Yeah, Google gives me what I need. Nobody else does. Religion does not. And those people are like, they're like, they believe anything that anybody tells them. They think Google is God. That's the other part. Oh, I just read a report that said the vaccine gives you horns. I got to tell everybody on Twitter, you're going to get horns. Don't get the vaccine. Getting horns. No, it's not true. You're not getting horns. You're not. Anyway, a lot of fun today. Thanks for doing this, dude.
Yeah, thanks for having me. Yeah, Max was great. It was a good chat.
Wasn't he awesome?
Yeah. He's it's funny. He'll just because he talks like us, but he's way more in touch with a lot of the stuff that. Yeah, you know, but he throws a good. He knows how to pepper in a good joke, and I appreciate that in his writing as well. So, big fan of him. You hear about the new Netflix special coming out before we go?
No.
Oh, I tweeted about it today. Netflix original series coming soon. 45 Days of Death. How one lady went on a 45-day killing spree, dispatching the Pound, the British Conservative Party, and Queen Elizabeth II.
She did some great work in 45 days.
Look how evil she looks.
Liz Truss.
I'd watch this.
I would too. What a mess. They've had three prime ministers in the last 3 years. Like in any world that you live in, like specifically in the United States. When you look at Canada, you're like, this is wrong with politics. Of course, everything's wrong with politics. We are nowhere near the hot fucking disaster mess that they are in the United Kingdom. Like it is.
Brexit thing?
And by the way, if you don't know about Liz Truss, if you don't know about her party, the Conservative Party of England, they ushered all this in on purpose. Brexit, this is why we've got a revolving door of idiots in England that keep it, because they elected a conservative government and they burned that shit down, burned it down. And so something else comes out and half the conservative government infighting, hate each other, fucking can't stand each other. They're destroying that country, destroying their finances, destroying the wealth, generational wealth of people in that country. They're destroying lives in that country. They have no stability in that country whatsoever. We do. But if you vote conservative, you won't. It's
going the same way.
Look what's happening in Alberta, dude. Look what's happening. And it'll be the same thing here. The conservatives hate each other more than they hate you and me. Yeah. They hate you and they hate each other more than they hate liberals. They hate each other more than they hate anybody else. And the second person that they hate the most is you. The third is other political parties. They literally hate your guts. And we're seeing what happens when you elect a conservative government that hates you. Is they try to do anything they can for their people, and then whatever's left, they're like, fuck you. That's what's happening in the United Kingdom, and that is what's going to happen here. Keep that in mind. This is a fucking free play. Watch it. Be interested in world politics. Be interested in what's going on in the United States. Because if you give a fuck about
It's a
this
mirror.
country, it's going to happen here.
It's
if
a crystal ball is what it is. The United States, I've always said, we're a couple of years behind the United States, and the United States right now looks like they're on track to be. I don't even know. We had this conversation with somebody the other day. They said, "What is your real thought on the future? Like, where do you see the United States in 5 to 10 years politically?" And I said, I really don't know. I don't know what this is going to bring. Like, people talk civil war, and if you told me that 10 years ago, I'd have laughed at you and thought you were crazy. If she said there might be a civil war in the United States now within the next 10 years, I'd be like, maybe.
Maybe.
I mean,
yeah.
maybe.
Well, they got guns, right? Like,
it's fucking nuts.
Civil war up here would just be a bunch of people fucking giving each other finger across the street. In the United States, it would be like a full-on war. Because everybody's loaded. Everybody's packing heat down there. That's what scares me.
That's
anyway,
a bipartisan
have a great day, everybody.
Take care, man.
Have a great day, everybody. Be positive. At least you know what's going on around you. It's kind of the goal. Have a little fun, know what's going on around you. And thank you for tuning in. Really appreciate it. Thanks to our friends at kivlaw.ca. As always, we're powered by our friends at kivlaw.ca. Defense lawyers who give a shit about your freedom. Give them a call. You in trouble? Something happened? You need real legal representation, not the fly-by-night guys or, this might. No. Call these guys. Trust me. They will help you out. Robert at kivlaw.ca. That's his email address. If you did something you didn't do, being told that you're supposed to do something, you need legal answers, or you need to employ some type of legal widget so that you can get the freedom that you want or get the answers that you need, make sure that you give my friend Robert a call, Robert at kivlaw.ca. Send him an email, and he will get back to you immediately. As always, we're powered by our friends at Kivlaw Defense Lawyers. Also powered by Added Ed's Fine Imports is get your incredible luxury branded boxer briefs. Pouch in the front, can't miss. Put everything in there. Big enough for Canadian mail, big enough for you and me. Made in Canada as well. Good Canadian guy, good Canadian company, great Canadian business. Ed's Fine Imports, clothing for men and boys, massive online store too. Use promo code GITCH3 when you buy the underwear. If you buy 3 or more pair, he'll send you a free pair for free on me. GITCH3, that's your promo code. You're welcome. edsfineimports.com. And of course, Easy Auto Financial, helping people get in cars now for well over a year. It's new business, but these guys are awesome, like incredible. They just get people financing for free around the country, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. And they put you in touch with the car that you want at the dealership that you want to get it from. They take care of all the details. That's why it's called easyautofinancial.ca. It's not called somewhat difficult, or we'll fill out some of the stuff, but we're going to leave you with the bill and a whole bunch of other shit you can't figure out. That's what some financing companies do. These guys don't. They're awesome. EasyAutoFinancial.ca. No obligation. Check them out today. And if you're looking for financing, use them. Trust me. I love them. Great guys. Great people. Tons of fun. Anyway, there you go. That's it for us. Have a great day, everybody. Appreciate it. We'll be back tomorrow right here on this very program around 3 o'clock. We'll see you then. Bye.